Wendy, let's talk about those Celtics. If I said the Celtics are going to sweep Cleveland in the next round, do you believe it or not?
I say not, because I never, ever believe a team is going to get swept. It's just something I always say, and I'm often wrong. I will say the Cavs have played Boston tough over the last couple of years. A few months ago, they had a 22-point fourth-quarter comeback victory. Big factor in this for the Cavs to be competitive. Jared Allen missed the last 3 games of the last series with a rib injury. Gentlemen's
sweep, perhaps. Legs, I'll come to you. If I said LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry, the defining players of this generation, are not going to win any more championships, do you believe that or not?
Believe it. Can't see it happening. Ooh. Steph Curry's not leaving Golden State. He'll play his last game in a Warriors uniform, and I just don't know how they're going to rebuild that team to the extent you're going to have to with the level of competition with some of these young teams with young stars in the Western Conference. LeBron and KD, obviously there's a lot more uncertainty all the time about where they're going to be. I personally think LeBron stays in LA, and I just don't think, again, relative to the competition at the top of the West, they're going to be able to break through.
Look, there was a really smart tweet that I saw over the weekend because I wrote it, and it said that we're seeing the future arriving in the NBA in this postseason, and here's the proof of it. These 10 teams you see on your screen were the 10 preseason favorites to win the NBA championship. Those were the odds. Only 3 of them are still playing. Minnesota, meanwhile, was 40-1. The Knicks were 50-1. The Thunder were 70-1. And the Pacers were 200-1. So, Jay Will, if someone were to say, these young stars, the Anthony Edwards and the SGAs and those guys, are on the verge of ripping the league away from the clutches of LeBron and Steph and KD, what would you say?
That they already have. I mean, it's always been the case. I mean, you're mentioning Shea and Luka, Giannis, the Joker. They've already taken the league over by control. We're talking about LeBron James, KD, and Steph. And look, LeBron's always going to be godfather in it, and Steph and KD are still phenomenal players, but they're on the back end of their careers. You're talking about players right now that are on the front end and literally taking the league by storm.
Let me translate. What I think you're saying, and certainly what I would say, is that the media, and maybe to some degree the fans, are late to catch up to this. But the reality is, while we're sitting here talking about LeBron James and Steph Curry, and justifiably so because they're 2 of the probably 10 greatest players that ever lived, the truth is the league has moved on, and the young stars have taken it over.
They have, and then, you know, the 3 guys that we mentioned and the 3 guys that were in the question that you teed me up with, think about it. You know, they're home. First round's over.
Yeah.
Those guys are all watching, all at the same time. This next generation of players take the stage and deliver the goods, because these guys aren't just on good teams that are winning. They're incredibly entertaining in doing it. Look, LeBron and Curry, particularly at the top of the list, they're always going to generate so much interest, right? And so many topics of conversation. We do it here all the time because people are interested in their careers. But if we're being honest about the state of the league, it's in the hands now of this next wave.
To be clear, this is not meant to diminish those guys. I'm a voter. I voted all 3 of them all NBA this year. I forget which teams they were on. None of them were first team, but all 3 of those guys, LeBron, KD, and Steph Curry, were all NBA performers this year. This isn't about them. It's about the youth. It's about, while the whole world has still been paying, and I'm raising my hand, perhaps that I'm as guilty of this as anyone, still paying attention to those guys, these young guys have come in and they have taken over the league.
They were also on my ballot, and normally when those guys play this well, they carry their teams. They're not able to do it anymore. And that's you look at the Western Conference, look at the teams that are still alive, and I'm telling you, any of them can win the West because they've got these young star players. I can't say that about those guys, about LeBron, KD, and Steph anymore. And that is the state of play where we are. And if you want to look at the league going forward, spend the time to watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Spend the time to watch Anthony Edwards.
And we're talking about, like, the names that are coming up are Ant and Luka and Shea and Joker. Brunson belongs in that category as a young player. Tyrese Halliburton is a guy.
This afternoon, the NBA is going to name Victor Wembanyama
There's another
Rookie of the Year. And pretty soon we'll be talking about Victor in May as well.
Yeah, so we've got dynamic young stars ready to take this league by storm in every way, and perhaps they already have. To that point, I'm just thinking through my first team All-NBA ballot. I think this will be the first 5. Of those, I think Giannis is the only one who's not still playing, right? Jokic is still playing. Giannis, Jayson Tatum, Luka, and SGA.
I had Mr. Brunson
You
on
put
my-
Brunson ahead of
ahead of,
his position. Who did you take off?
ahead of Tatum, which is not a commentary on Tatum, but a commentary on the value of Brunson.
I had people telling me I should have done that. Maybe I should have.
Can I ask my friend a basketball question very
Please
quickly?
do.
If you had one pick right now, who would you take, Jayson Tatum or Anthony Edwards?
Ant.
To start a team with?
Yeah, between those two guys.
Let me get to that question in a minute here. I'm going to get you there sort of a roundabout way. Because someone said to me yesterday, Greeny, if we were to vote for playoff MVP right now, who would win? And I said, well, why don't I put together a list of those? I showed it to you earlier. For those of you just joining us, here they are. If I were voting for my MVP of the playoffs right this minute, I would vote Donovan Mitchell 5th. I would vote Joel Embiid 4th. I know they lost, but I don't know how much more he could have done under the guts that he showed you with all the injuries and everything else he played through. At 3 is the Joker. At 2 is the sensational young Anthony Edwards. And at 1 is Jalen Brunson, because to me, you can't carry a team. You can't be more, quote, valuable to your team than Brunson was in that first round series. That said, I want to merge these two conversations because this is the more interesting one. If you were starting a team right now, and I said you need to pick one player for the next 10 years, this is the guy who is going to carry my franchise for the next decade, the way Kevin Durant, Steph Curry has, and guys who stayed in one place for that level of time. Any one player in the NBA today, who would you pick?
Victor Wembanyama.
It would be Wembanyama ahead, and who would be second?
It would be Anthony Edwards. I'd probably go Anthony Edwards second, and very close with Luka. That to me is a coin toss. I'd be okay losing that coin toss and taking the other guy, but Victor Wembanyama to me I think is the answer.
It seems like every year we keep talking about the skill set becoming more and more and more refined. The game of basketball has never seen somebody with his size and his skill set combined in the way he impacts the game on the defensive end.
So that's fair. So then let's say in a world in which you can't take him because he really almost shouldn't count.
Let's come to the second pick. Let's come to my pick.
Right.
That's where I live.
That's right. You were the second pick. And you got drafted behind a guy who was 7'5".
I'm familiar with it.
How tall was Yao Ming? Who was taller? Yao Ming?
7'6".
Was Yao Ming as tall? Who was taller, Wembanyama or Yao Ming?
I think Yao might have him.
I think Yao's
Yao's
on
Screw it either way.
Well, one way or the other. Fair enough. You were the second pick because the other guy was huge. So now we're going to do the same thing. Who's the second pick in this? If we're all taking Wembanyama, who is the second pick to start a team
I'm
with?
going with the guy that has that Jordan-esque feel. I'm going with Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards
Yes.
right now would be the second player you would start a franchise with out of everyone in the NBA.
Yes. Yeah, I just like what he brings on both ends. I like the fact that first opening possession, he's guarding Jamal Murray. Like, even though he didn't guard him the entirety of the game, it's like, just in case I see you, I want you to know I'm willing to take you on right now. Like, that's meaningful to me. We don't see that as much in basketball because we're a highlight-driven culture that only gives you all the offensive highlights. I like the dog in him on both sides.
It would be Anthony Edwards for you?
The finish is about as close as the Kentucky Derby with Luka for me.
You're a huge Luka fan.
Oh, I am, because the way
one thing Luka's not going to do, and I know that people were praising his defense in that series, he's not going to D you up the way Anthony Edwards.
He's not that level of defender athletically, no, but the way in which he controls the other end of the floor, and I don't think there's an answer for him at all in what he wants to do offensively to you. There just isn't. He's too strong, he's too good a shooter, and he's too smart. He's 2 steps ahead of you. So I would be okay, like I said, I'd be okay with that coin toss not going my way. And if I end up with the second guy in this draft of future stars and I end up with Luka, I'd be perfectly fine with that.
Windman, if this draft actually existed, if the whole league just decided they were going to do this, who do you think would be the second pick? I assume we all think Wembanyama would go 1, right? Who would go 2?
I think it would be Ant, but don't forget that Ja Morant is still out there.
Oh.
Ja is still a very exciting young player. And also, this could be the summer of Jayson Tatum. He was overlooked because they were so good this year. He could win the finals. He could win the finals MVP. He's going to get a $300 million contract this summer, and he could win the gold medal. We could be getting to the fall talking about a coronation of Jayson Tatum. Don't forget that.
Yeah, he's a little older than these guys, but the Ja Morant one is an interesting one. Out of sight, out of mind. We all know he has been gone, so much of it of his own doing. We get all of that. But he is a player who, at his best, did have future face of the NBA. It sort of looked like it was written all over him, right? He was that level of good.
Well, the thing that makes him incredible is that size and that frame, right? And you can see, obviously, being injured, durability is going to be a big question for him, considering he's such an acrobatic talent. We've kind of seen that before with Derrick Rose, but if he can stay healthy, he's a game changer.
Very few players' legs have better highlights than Ja Morant, right? I mean, very few.
No, there's no question about it. I think durability is a massive factor when it comes to Ja Morant. I think one thing about Tatum, I'll say this, one thing that actually hurt him in this conversation is getting him so much help that there's such a prohibitive favorite to win it all. And winning 64 games on a 14-game lead in your conference, it actually works against him in this conversation where some of these other younger guys have a chance to do something and taking a team all the way across the finish line at an age in which Jayson Tatum was always coming to the threshold and the precipice but couldn't break through. And now they've gotten so much help that actually is something that hurts him in this conversation.
NBA,